Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sorting Hat Podcast. I, as always, am your host, Michael Barryte, a Ravenclaw, joined by my Hufflepuff co-host, Katie Reed.
Are you protected, Michael?
Not at the moment, but I love that this has become the norm of
what?
It's always and co-host Katie Reed, and then some reference to the thing that we're going to be covering. It took me a while to realize that was a normal thing.
Oh, really? You didn't realize, Katie's not just spouting complete nonsense?
No, you're always spouting complete nonsense, but it is more thematically correct nonsense.
That's fair.
But the basic conceit of the show is we are joined by a guest who is knowledgeable or a fan of some topic, which we then sort into the various houses of Hogwarts.
Today, we have a very awesome guest who is a sex education what would you call it?
A sexual health educator.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Arielle Schwitkis.
Thank you so much for having me on, y'all.
And today we're going to be sorting birth control methods.
Mm-hmm.
Super stoked.
Yeah, my favorite things.
Arielle, what house are you in, by the way?
Well, I am in a Slytherin. I am a proud Slytherin.
Is that according to the sort?
It was
okay.
Go ahead.
Because prior to this this fun recording, Arielle and I go way back, and Arielle is a very big fangirl of Slytherin. You do not know this, but
I did, because Arielle's decked out in entirely green and all of the Slytherin colors right now,
gray,
for a podcast that none of you will see, but we see it, and I feel like that's a microaggression against me.
She's legitimately dressed as if she were a Slytherin schoolgirl in an anime right now.
Yeah,
it's true.
Arielle, when did you first start becoming interested in birth control as something to be I don't want to call you a hobbyist, but
I'd say so.
When did you start being birth control rules?
Well, I think back in middle school in elementary school, back when there were those fun videos where they gendered us and separated us out because this information is only for people blah blah blah, which not fair, but this information is for everyone regardless of gender or sexual orientation. But anyway.
when they took the boys and separated them, because I was still a girl then, when they separated you guys, what did you guys learn about in sex ed?
I don't recall a separation taking place. Maybe I'm crazy, but
in TUSD, Torrance Unified, they definitely separated us. And I think they made us watch the same movie where they said everyone's penis is different, just like noses.
I remember, I don't know if we maybe got a more particularly conservative, reactionary sort of teacher teaching us. But I remember the teacher, I won't name her name, she opened a candy bar, took a bite, and then handed it to a girl and was like, do you want this? I mean, but you need to pay full price.
Oh, God.
Oh, wait, you wouldn't want to pay full price for something that someone else has opened up and ruined a little bit? That's what your pussy is. I don't think she said that last part, but that was it was that sort of no one once used goods, honey, but we were 11.
Oh.
What type of candy bar was it?
I want to say it wasn't even one of the good ones either. It was probably a Payday or something.
That's the issue right there. Because if you were yo, that's a Milky Way, that girl would be nah, I'm going to chomp on that. Yeah.
Milky Way is your go-to, good candy bar?
Milky Way's up there, and Snickers, probably.
I'm a Charleston Chew person myself.
Who are you?
I'm a 1920s radio announcer. Yep.
All right. Well, let's dive into this. What are some of the larger pantheon of birth controls that we might be tackling today?
Yeah, so most of the birth control that we'll be talking about today is a hormonal variety.
Mm-hmm.
So these methods interact with a person's hormones and working by preventing ovulation for the most part, and some of them thin the uterine lining and prevent the release of an egg, which is ovulation. And most of these will also be prescription methods that a person can talk to their healthcare provider for more about. I'm not going to give medical advice here, just overviews of what these methods are. And a lot of these are, or some of these are long lasting, some of them are shorter methods, and every person should think carefully about what's right for them and what's right for their lifestyle.
Right.
When thinking about birth control.
And I'm going to probably assume a caveat at the top of it that if you were assigned male at birth, these will probably not be for you. Not many of them anyway.
Yeah. These will be mostly for people who have ovaries, uterus, and produce eggs, but everyone can be involved with the decision-making process if they have a partner, or it's just cool to be knowledgeable about these things.
Mm-hmm.
Yay.
Yeah, I'm going.
They're actually really fascinating. There's a bunch of weird stuff about it that may or may not only be interesting to the people who can take the medications and or types of birth control. But anyway, let's get into it. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I love this stuff. I took instead of like other sorts of like chemistry or other stuff in college, I took reproductive biology. That was like almost the entirety of my science career in college.
That's the most beautiful, attractive thing I've ever heard.
Man, except for the one dude who sat next to me, and I think he just went there to be horny, and it was really bad. It was like he would make like a gross scrunchy, like, I don't like this face anytime we would just talk about health stuff, but then he got really into it anytime he saw a naked woman using any visual aids, even just like the fallopian tubes and stuff. I was like, you're just here to be horny and see diagrams? I don't get this, dude. But other than that, aces.
Yeah. Those
All right,
diagrams, though.
What's first on our long list?
Yeah. So I'm going to start with the pill. The pill. The pill.
The pill, the pill, the pill.
Mm-hmm.
Break it down.
All
What's
right.
it do?
So the pill is a hormonal method of birth control, and a person will take this every day at roughly the same time every single day. And there is about a week out of the month that the type of pills that they're taking are kind of like sugar pills. So that's when a person will menstruate and bleed. And this method, it's a lot of people are prescribed this very first. A lot of people know about it. And the pill specifically has a really interesting history. The term birth control was coined by Margaret Sanger in the early days of the United States. I didn't write when she coined the term down, but so Margaret Sanger met the endocrinologist Gregory Pincus at a dinner party in New York, and she persuades him to work on the birth control pill. This is what happened in 1951. And it was extremely controversial at the time.
Mm-hmm.
There was this thing called the Comstock Laws, which were put into motion March 3rd, 1873, and it criminalized the use of using the postal service to send obscene materials. So any pamphlets about birth control or what options were available, so any resources to send them through the postal service, a person could be charged for. And
so it was like censorship of information.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Specifically towards birth control. Now, just to speak a little more on the pill itself. So if somebody misses a pill...
Talking to a medical professional is important here. And I think for some pills, you can take 2 in one day if you miss the day before, but a person should then use a backup form of birth control, like one of the barrier methods.
So this is a weaker option that requires the user to be a lot more attentive.
Yes. So vigilance is important with this method. And for lazy folks like myself, this and forgetful people, this might not be the method. But
the only reason I'm curious about this is because, like, I for a very long time I have ulcerative colitis, like Crohn's disease. I have to take pills daily, or had to take pills daily. And when I spoke with my specialist, my gastroenterologist, they said, "Oh, if you miss a day here or there, like, it's still in your system. That's fine. But in the case of the pill, this is like." You drop once and like you're at risk, is there a percentage of that, or is it just like you're back up to 100% at risk, or?
Well, not 100% at risk. So with all birth controls, except for a few, there's typical use and then there's perfect use. Perfect use is when someone is using it regularly, they're using it all the time, as prescribed and used. And then
basically,
use.
It's like, here's the benchmark everyone's going to try to be hitting, but typical use is like when humans actually get involved.
Yeah.
Like
right.
The perfect rate use is like what would be like a computer be like, this is how you use it. And then typical use is when my dumbass forgets my pill. And yes, even one day can, and it depends on the kind of birth control too, because these are basically giving you more types of different hormones into your body. And so it's really going to, like, because not every pill has the same kind of combination of hormones or even the same utilization of hormones, even in this specific category. So it's all going to really depend, because some pills you don't even have to have the latent the week
the
where
off
you
time.
where some of them you can just keep going extended through it, and you never have to get your period while you're on it. So honestly, it's just like, I don't know, to me it'd be like if you let your car insurance lapse for a day, that sort of thing. If you didn't pay your car insurance and you went one day without having it, it's like, I mean, you'll probably be fine, but why would you risk that and go driving around when you didn't have your car insurance for a day? That's pretty much how I see it. What about you?
Yeah, I see it like it's not super, super risky, but it's just not a good idea. Just try your best. Try the best possible.
Because hormonal fluctuations can also affect things like your mood, or even like, you know, if you're using it to balance emotions, like that can really throw you off whack.
Yeah.
Right.
And a lot of people also have different reactions to hormones, and there can be side effects for some people. Like some people, it might clear up their skin. Some people might experience less cramping. Some people might experience more cramping. Everybody's different, and that's beautiful.
Okay. Where do you feel, or is there more to discuss on the pill before we dive into sorting?
Oh, I just want to get to sorting this baby.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you feel like you have a pretty...
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the activist background of the pill and how controversial and how hard it was and how hard everyone had to work to like get this from its inception as an idea of like, oh, people should be able to regulate their bodies and make the decision for themselves of, do I want to bear a child? Do I want to have a pregnancy? And that makes me feel like this baby's a Gryffindor.
I'm going to say Slytherin, but because I am a little bit more far left on the political spectrum than some people, and Margaret Sanger was a eugenicist.
Yeah, I wasn't going to bring that up, but that is something that I
and I always feel,
know.
and I always think that context is important. That a lot of first wave and second wave feminists who were white didn't always necessarily have the best interest in mind for all women and people assigned female at birth. And for that, I'm gonna give the birth control method Slytherin.
I don't know. Margaret Sanger is a person, like a lot of people, and I feel horrible saying this, a lot of people of that time were severely misinformed and held those beliefs. But she had also seen like a lot of women dying in childbirth and because people were having these multiple births. And
well, I don't necessarily think Slytherins are bad. I'm not automatically putting them in the villain category, but I am saying that it was a very self-serving purpose for why she wanted it, because she also wanted there to be less Black women having children, and that was a reality of the time. And even keeping it with the context of, you know, how most people felt at the time, there were a lot of criticisms even with her contemporaries. So that's why I'd give it a Slytherin.
Now, was this the pioneer, the very first set of birth control that really made it to the modern, like,
oh, for sure,
large scale market?
There was like clinical stuff in the 30s, but then but like early 50s is when like not only could doctors start prescribing it, but women could actually be allowed to get it.
I knew that there was like a smaller birth control movement, but I wasn't sure if this was like the grandstand of, hey, we're allowing the floodgates to be opened.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand where both of you are coming from, and I hate that now it's like right now a guy has to do the tiebreaker, so I'm going to abstain
don't think of it that way either.
From that.
No, what do you think?
I mean, I
think Slytherins can do things that are heroic and stuff. I always just because as I've said before, I have a theory on this podcast that the 4 houses, 2 of them complement each other. And it all has to do with like self-service or with like selflessness. And I think Hufflepuffs and Ravenclaws are very similar, but Ravenclaws are a little bit more self-serving, and Hufflepuffs are a little less interested in like the individual success. And then it's the same with Slytherins and Gryffindors. Gryffindors will often be just as prideful and potentially problematic as Slytherins, but Slytherins are a little bit more like just openly like self-serving.
I think
they're honest.
Where I stand is the intent, the initial intent of the pill is perhaps a Slytherin, but the like holistic sorting of the pill is Gryffindor, because it did really like
is a net gain for humanity in your opinion. Okay.
Like net gain. But then, like, if you just look at Singer, you're like, yeah, some of the reasoning behind that is a little one track.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting. Like, just the other week, we also found out that Nazis helped us build rockets to go to space with NASA.
Yeah.
So we're learning everybody's problematic. It's all of faves are problematic.
Yeah. All right.
And the fun is complicating those issues and getting into the juice.
Yeah.
So sorted.
Yeah.
What do we have next? We've got the pill.
Oh, there's a method that I found out about recently, which is the fertility awareness method, and the acronym for it's FAMS, and I thought it was adorable.
Is that the rhythm method? Is that another name for it? Like when you just like track your ovulation cycle?
That can be a component of it.
Okay.
But there's like 3 different ways that a person can look into their own fertility. And one of those is by tracking. So all these work by tracking. So one way is by tracking your basal temperature. So a person will wake up in the morning.
What is a basal temperature?
Yeah, it is the lowest. It is your lowest body temperature, and so and it's like what you are as a human being. And
like if you were sedentary in a bed for a while, you're like you would have your basal.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Temperature all the time, and it's just
so
like
a little bit below the 98.7
usually,
or whatever.
Because this is usually with anything having to do with fertility or finding out if you're pregnant or anything like that, you want to do it like first thing in the morning because you haven't been doing any exercise, you haven't eaten anything, so your metabolism isn't firing up. So you were gonna say usually they check the basal temperature in the morning.
Yes, once waking, like. People will have a thermometer by their bedside, wake up, take it, write it down, go back to sleep, or go on with your day. She gestured
to her mouth, by the way. I was like, I don't even know if they do it there, or if they put it in the vagina, or what they do.
I think the most common is the mouth, but there are other ways to take temperature that have different accuracies.
Yeah, can't you do armpit or like ear?
I've never had it taken in the armpit, but I've also heard that that's a place that you can take it.
Yeah.
Because you're just trying to get into like one of the warmer parts of the body, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, but I think mouth.
Ear.
I think as a kid, you have it taken from your ear, right?
I feel like I've had that recently at the doctor too, but like I'm a small person, so.
Why does that feel? I'm small too. Why does that sound weird to me? Because my ears feel cold right now.
Well, it sounds weird because it's involving your ears.
Michael, you need to shut your mouth.
Oh, you can't tell me to shut my mouth, Katie. You make so many dumb jokes on this freaking pod.
I was like, is it going to be a fight today? Is there going to be a fight today?
I don't think it's a good pod until Michael and I get into a full fist fight.
Yeah.
I have 4 teeth left, by the way.
And those teeth look great.
Thank you. Yeah. So what else is involved with the FAM method?
Yeah, this FAM method. A person can also track their cervical mucus. So at different parts of the month, a person will have different sorts of discharge, which can be more watery or more sticky and tacky or more like similar to like an egg white.
Hey, Michael, do you want some of this tapioca pudding?
I'm going to pass
Have
on
a big
that.
old mouthful.
It was so kind of you to bring it for everyone to share.
Looks like the second day of my cycle.
You're like, Katie is just eyeballing me and like really staring me down to be like, get grossed out. Get grossed out. Because I have so many responses to when you get grossed out.
But Michael, like a good ally, is steely-eyed and not having any of my nonsense.
No, none. Back to fam.
So when it's like an egg white, is that when you are at your most fertile, or?
I believe so. This is a method that I found out about recently from my roommate because I was like, "Oh, it's just you track it," and but no, it's a lot more.
So with all that
nuanced than
information, then what are you doing with it?
You chart it. And so you can see spikes in your temperature and falls in your temperature and see pretty scientifically, like, when am I ovulating or when is a person ovulating? And if a person is ovulating, then they're releasing an egg. So that will be a time that a person would not want to have sex. And or if they are trying to family plan in order to create a pregnancy, that would be the time to introduce sperm.
That's why in all the movies where they're like trying to get pregnant, they'll be like, Howard, it's time. And just like, there's always that like, oh, but I'm not even necessarily in the mood right now.
So
romance is gone.
So in this situation, really it's fam paired with abstinence.
Yeah, because abstinence is a choice a person can also make to not have sex currently, but yeah.
Because this is more of a data-driven form of birth control that requires like active or inactivity, sexual inactivity in order to be assured, like, I will not get pregnant because I have not had
you have to be thinking about it a lot more than any other method.
This is a Ravenclaw.
For sure. I know where you were going. I will say, I am personally not a huge fan of this one if you're doing it just to avoid pregnancy, but also I'm not going to judge anyone else's choices. But I will say the perfect typical use rate is abysmal. That's all I'm going to say.
And it's great if for a person to advocate for their body and find out like what is going on with me personally. Yeah. I think that's like really cool and empowering. And yeah, Ravenclaw for sure.
But I also think that could make a person a little bit crazy. Like,
well, unless you're the kind of person who just loves doing that stuff to begin with.
Yeah, but like, I'm just simply saying, unless you are a medical professional, like, yes, it is your body, certainly, but like your assessment of like viscosity of your own vaginal secretion, like, may not actually be correct to like what the larger...
Oh, sure. Usually people who do this method are doing it under the guidance of a doctor anyway.
Okay.
Almost, there's no method in which you should be like, I'm doing this at home, baby.
I was definitely thinking
keep my
this
money
was more
under
of
a mattress and I don't see doctors. I don't trust the government. Like, not that sort of thing.
I was seeing this as like a homebrewed, like, this is the way you just...
No.
You should, like... If nothing else, you should be checking in periodically with your doctor. Be like, is this data seem right? Am I on the right track here?
Okay, I misunderstood. I apologize.
Yeah, and there's also backup birth control methods, like barrier methods, like the internal or external condoms, also called male and female condoms, and that also prevent against the spread of STDs. So they're also great.
And like also if you're doing the certain method and you're like, oh, I think I made a mistake. In a lot of places, the Plan B pill is now available over the counter. So, and if a pharmacist refuses to give it to you, report them.
Yay, activism!
After checking your state laws, because is it available in all states now? I don't know.
I haven't been following since this presidential cycle.
Oh yeah, no, even like in the past 2 weeks, that information might be different.
Yeah,
because they're trying to shut it down. If you live in Texas, you're fucked, or don't be fucking, is what I'm saying.
Oh, so sad.
So
yeah,
what's up next?
Let's go on to emergency contraception.
Okay.
Yay.
Oh yeah. Speak of the devil.
What
Yeah, or not.
segue?
Or in my case,
Mhm.
angel.
I was
Yeah.
going to say that might be the devil for some.
But lots of people have different values and should consider what is right for them specifically.
Mhm.
But emergency contraception is a great backup method. So it is best practice to use one of the other methods that we'll talk about. And if someone does choose to have sex and something does happen, like a condom breaks, a condom maybe maybe it was forgotten, or in cases of rape and sexual assault where no method was used, this is a very important tool that is a last ditch effort to prevent against pregnancy. And so if a pregnancy has occurred, this will not terminate the pregnancy. It's not a form of abortion. And different emergency contraceptive pills, like called Plan B. Some are called One Choice, and also called EC, emergency contraception. It also works by preventing ovulation. So if ovulation hasn't already occurred, and it will thicken the cervical mucus, making it harder for sperm to reach an egg. And for a lot of people, it will push them towards starting their menstrual cycle. And it's a very important tool if a person is in a difficult place.
Based on just that,
Mhm.
I'm of the mindset that it's a Gryffindor.
Oh no, for sure. Especially also because it was sometimes, like Harry Potter, sort of like repressed or held back from its full potential, because this was introduced in the 70s, but it didn't become over the counter available until like the last decade. I think it was like 2006, 2007. It was like widely available for people who needed it.
Mm-hmm. And now for people over the age of 17 and over, getting it without a prescription is also really cool.
Yeah, I mean, obviously always be as careful as possible, but know that if you need this, you should get it instead of letting people tell you that you should just make an even bigger commitment to that.
There are some situations, especially like what we referenced earlier, of like rape is definitely a situation where this is going to be very helpful for you.
Yeah, and in the opinion of this podcast anyway.
Yes.
So even some people are like, no, just have that baby. But we won't get too deep into it because I'll get mad and start trashing the room.
Yeah, we don't want anything flipped. But mine's. Yay. Yeah, Gryffindor for sure. And it also, the sooner it is taken after sexual activity, the better. But I believe it can be still effective up to 5 days after the unprotected intercourse.
Gotcha. So shall we dive back into the vagina for other options of birth control?
That's my favorite thing to do, Michael.
All right.
Yeah. So yeah, dive for sure. Let's go to the birth control ring.
All right.
Yeah. So the ring is inserted for oh wait, no, I want to go to the patch. I'll come back to the patch.
There's
I'm
just so many exciting options.
Yeah, I'm so excited about all of them. Okay, can I go back to the patch?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go back to the patch because there's other stuff going on in the arm.
Yeah.
And like outside outside of the reproductive organs that are definitely interesting.
Yeah. So the birth control patch. So the patch, it looks kind of like a Band-Aid, and it's like about 1 by 1 square.
A lot like the nicotine patch too, if you've ever seen that.
And unfortunately, it's only available in one shade, and which is like a light.
It's that gross Band-Aid color
Yeah.
that like me. I've only ever seen one person have exactly that skin tone, but they call it flesh color anyway.
Yeah. But this method is worn on the body, so on the upper outer arms, on the back, just really not on a person if they have breasts or their booty. Those aren't good places to wear it. And it's a really discreet method. It can be worn while showering and swimming and shouldn't come off with sweat and should not be removed. But it is worn on the body for 1 week, and then another week passes and a person will put on a new one. Same thing for another week. On the 4th week, it is not worn, so a person can have their menstrual cycle. And then start it over like that.
Is it are there many varieties of it, or is it like a progesterone only version, or low dose, or
There's only the one version of it.
yeah, that's what I thought.
Mhm. So
for a lot of these like anything that's not the pill has like tons of options, but anything when you get outside of it, it's usually just like one variety that you can get. So if you have like an issue medically with like this exact like recipe, like you're kind of screwed if that's like your preferred
I think
method.
that also probably stems from research being somewhat limited as far as its funding goes, so you only have one company able to really be like, we're going all in on this one concept.
And then there's also like the patent issue that like usually takes a long time for stuff to be able to become genericized.
And demand, like if a lot of people are like, we want more of the patch, we want all of the patch, then maybe.
They tried it. There was a push for it. Remember, they used to have commercials for it. I remember. But that was like at least 10 years ago.
Dang.
Yeah, they showed like women doing yoga and they were all like ethnically ambiguous because they were just really going for it in a way that we wouldn't see in media for another 10 years.
Now, with the patch, similar to birth control, or it seems like the general theme across the board for at least many of these is there are like there's a calendar that you've got to be watching because it's trying to like time out with the body.
That's like a lot of having a being assigned female at birth in general, because like you're already having to track it for your regular period even before you go on this method. Most women or trans people or anyone who was born with these body parts will have to have been doing that.
Now, to that end,
you got to know when to buy tampons.
Yeah, or you'll just have a menstrual cup in your pocket all the time.
But to that end, does that mean that when you are starting the patch or starting the pill, you need to be like, this is the end of my like menstrual cycle. Now I start the patch? Like, would that just really fuck things up if you start the patch like right when you're about to be having your period? Like,
doctors that I've talked to about this, so they'll say like, okay, wait until it starts and ends, and then you can go on this method, or so they will align it to your body, and it's a very personal thing. So
yeah, and I like mostly it's their suggestions, as far as I can tell, are just to make sure that this new medicine is not going to be affecting your routine too much. So if you can time it correctly, you'll still have those same fertility windows. But bodies that are assigned female at birth are magic and fun in that any sort of situation, any sort of stimulus, any sort of irritant can actually modify your menstrual cycle anyway. So it usually just like, it's basically just like, make this easier for yourself, honey. Instead of like necessarily like, this is the optimal time. It's I think it's, as far as I can tell, mostly for comfort and routine. If you've been like, okay, I've had my 28-day cycle has been the same since I was 12. I don't want to change that too much and accidentally get my period on my honeymoon.
Gotcha.
Happy almost honeymoon.
Yeah.
Are weddings and honeymoons planned around that sort of thing?
Oh, it's probably at least considered.
Yeah.
Because, like, I mean,
that's something
I'm not in my opinion,
about.
It shouldn't be a problem. But for some people, it's not their favorite way to have sex is when they're on their menstrual cycle.
That's just something I've never thought about, having been like very good at being single.
Slide into those DMs, everybody.
Oh, you can't.
Yeah.
You can't bring that bit back.
It's my favorite
Put in
part
the
of the
promo
podcast.
code.
Ooh.
Tell Michael about your body.
That's what I want. That's what I want.
15% off his dick.
What?
I'm doing the promo code one. Like, it's a fake ad, but it's in your DMs.
No, yep, I was a little slow to start on that one, but now I'm there. And God damn it, Katie. So
my eyes are watering with delight.
This also strikes me as a bit of a Ravenclaw, but I don't. It's definitely coming in with like minimal knowledge to no knowledge. So
now we have to take into consideration its popularity, which might make it a Hufflepuff, because like not many people use it. It's definitely dependable, and it likes to hug. It grabs the body, so it's very cuddly.
I feel like because it only comes in one option and one color, that doesn't feel very like fair.
So it feels more like a Slytherin to you?
I don't.
Or
I feel like it's for very particular people.
Sure, yeah.
So I think Ravenclaw.
Fair enough.
All right. So now are we bouncing back to the ring?
I want to bounce back to that ring.
All right.
All right. So the vaginal ring, also known as the Nuva ring, again, I think this method only has the one option, but it is a flexible plastic ring that is inserted inside the vagina, and it kind of hangs out there, and it releases hormones when it comes in contact with body heat. So it's going to hang out there for 3 weeks at a time, and on the 4th week, there is no ring inserted. It'll be taken out, and then next week it will be replaced by another ring to hang out there for 3 more weeks.
Do you take it out when you have sexual intercourse? I don't know. I've never looked into. I don't remember.
So this is mostly depending on an individual's comfort.
Mm-hmm.
Some people might take it out, and it can be out for about 4 hours.
Okay.
But then should be replaced or put back in immediately or as soon as possible. But a partner may not feel it if it is inserted during vaginal sexual intercourse.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So this is a situation where it's just sort of hugging the walls,
Mm-hmm.
Just hanging out.
and there's like hormones within the ring that are just casually like secreting. Is it into the walls, like through osmosis, basically?
Yeah. So they're absorbed into the body.
Gotcha. I mean, that seems very straightforward, minimal, like outside of just insertion and removal.
Mm-hmm.
That seems like a relatively stress-free method. At least it doesn't require timing or data tracking or any of some of the things that might make a person wary of the other options. Just as coming in as like a complete outsider and newbie to a lot of this.
Yeah. This method seems really easygoing and user friendly.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, for lazy folks, like this option seems great. And yeah, not a scary thing. Some people may, if they're a person that doesn't like inserting things into their vagina, this may not be the method for them.
Right.
Yeah.
This seems to me as a bit of a Hufflepuff. Now I'm assuming that this comes in multiple sizes, or is it just like, nope?
I believe it's just the one size.
The one size.
So if you have like an irregularly shaped like cervix or anything, other parts of the body that it's going to be coming in contact with, you might have less of an easy time with it comfort wise.
Right. I still feel myself leaning towards Hufflepuff, but
all right.
Yeah, I think it's very Hufflepuff, and like this can be a lot of people's first introduction to birth control of like, oh, I don't really have to do much. I just kind of need to remember this every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the few methods also that is recommended that if you're not using it for a while, you keep it in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
Just chill it.
Yeah, because you don't want it to get too warm. So you like at the very least you gotta like not put it in sunlight. And then if you're not going to be using it for a while, they want you to store it in the fridge.
But then don't take it straight from the fridge and insert it.
If it's a hot day, baby, you go wild on it.
Right.
That's your business.
Yay.
What's up next?
Okay, next we're going to go to the shot.
Oh, the Depot shot.
Mm-hmm.
Slytherin. Moving on. Oh, no, we'll talk about it. Okay, go ahead and explain it.
So the injection shot, also known as Depot, thank you, Katie, it's given once every 12 weeks, so about 3 months, and it must be given at a healthcare provider's office or health center, and when used perfectly, the shot is 97 to 99% effective in preventing
one of
pregnancy.
The best, like the efficacy rates.
Yeah.
It's ridiculously good.
And I've heard sometimes it can reduce bone density in some people that take it, which is a complaint I've heard, but not everyone.
I don't know. It doesn't sound very good from the studies that I've read that they're like long term. We're not sure if this is something that we would definitely like recommend for long term use. And I'm somebody who's had 3 rounds of it, and I can speak from personal experience. A lot of women and or people who would use this birth control method are told like they'll potentially not get their period anymore. It'll like kind of like taper off into like light spotting and stuff. So for if you if you're one of those women and or people who would use this method, you'll get like 3 straight months of not having to worry at all about basically anything. However, there's also a significant portion of people who will menstruate for the entirety of that round, which I did.
So for 3 months you tried the shot method?
I have taken 3 rounds of it, so I've had about like 9 months of experience with it.
Sorry. So a round equals 3 months.
Yeah, approximately.
Gotcha.
And during that time, I menstruated the entire time. I lost a significant amount of weight and some of my hair.
Oh,
Which was weird. So it's definitely something you need to like definitely be very mindful of while you're using it, of being like checking in with your body and like, yeah, because I was borderline anemic from it because I menstruated the entire time.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was rough. It was metal. It was like it was one of the. We'll talk about it maybe a little bit later. But
That's
during my
appropriate, considering you had an iron deficiency, if you're anemic, it being metal.
Yeah, you get it. You're on it. When I was sterilized while they were waiting, and we can talk a little bit about that more. They put me on the depot shot while I was healing up as a preventative measure, just to be safe, and I hated it. So that's I have a very big personal bias. I will agree, but I think there are other methods that don't have the potential of already making bone density worse when it's a very big problem for people assigned female at birth.
Based off of what you've said, your own personal bias aside, it definitely sounds like it is either a Slytherin or a Gryffindor. Gryffindor just based on like, it's a really bold sort of move, but
very powerful.
But it also leads to the potential of leaving a bit of destruction in your wake.
Yeah, and that can be said of Gryffindor. I would actually probably give this a Gryffindor. I wouldn't make it a Slytherin.
That's what that was the Gryffindor component.
What do you think, Arielle?
I totally was thinking that it would be a Ravenclaw because it's just straight up hormones and science.
I mean, that's all birth control, though. We have to think of like the ramifications of it, and like I think this is one that hasn't been researched properly enough, and they don't do, I feel, proper enough research long term on any medication that's being fed to female bodies. So for that reason, I'd give it a Gryffindor or Slytherin. And in this case, I think for most women it's fine, but it's not something you can use long term.
And I've known some people who have had really great success and who have really enjoyed this method for them. And like, yeah, what's right for them may not be right for them, and that's cool too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, all of these methods, honestly, there are like a lot of ones that have gone like in and out of like, I don't want to say fashion, but yeah.
One of my favorite methods, which we'll get to eventually, was also like in its early stages. Well, we'll get there when we get there. Okay. We're going on to the implants.
Okay.
Yeah. So the implant, also known as implanon, is a small flexible rod that is inserted into the upper arm by a medical healthcare professional. And it stays there, and it continuously puts out a small level of hormones into the body. So the implant is effective for up to 3 years, and it is more than 99% effective in preventing against pregnancy.
It's a Hufflepuff.
But you can also touch it when it's in someone's arm, and they're kind of like a robot.
Is it still called Implanon now, or because I know there's also Nexplanon?
Oh, I thought that was the previous model.
I actually got an Nexplanon after I've also had this birth control method. And it's good. Yeah, it's good for a few years. Like, it's not as long lasting as IUD, which we'll get into later. But I actually had 2 different implants in my arm. I have 3 different scars from the insertion and when they took it out, finally.
It's so cool.
Yeah, I had Implanon first, and then the next round they said, we now have Nexplanon. We're going to give you Nexplanon. So maybe you're correct, and they're like, this is just all we had at this particular Planned Parenthood. By the way, big ups to Planned Parenthood in general for any birth control that you want, depending on the state and its politics. But at least in California, if you know what birth control method is going to be good for you, and you know that your GP is not going to be helpful to you, I highly, highly, highly recommend going to Planned Parenthood because they will help you get what you want for your body.
Yeah. And a lot of the methods are available there, low cost or no cost. And they have resources to tell you about what methods might be right for you.
Yeah. They'll even, like, this is on low key, babies. They'll low key if you cannot go through your own family's health insurance for reasons, they will help you.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to say about that.
Planned Parenthood serves everyone.
Where do you feel that the rod falls?
Oh, I also feel like this is probably all of the ones that have like, okay, because the implant is actually in perfect use rate. It has a higher efficacy rate than female sterilization methods.
Mhm.
It is super powerful.
Mhm.
It is super like, you do not have to think about it. I will say I also had some of the same issues, but I think that might have just as I had with the depot shot in terms of like I menstruated for the majority of the time that I was on it.
Mhm.
But I think it doesn't have the same health risks involved with the depot shot. So I would probably give it a Ravenclaw or
You're thinking Ravenclaw?
Ravenclaw or Gryffindor. I'm torn.
I was just leaning on Hufflepuff as the fact it's a one and done baby, like real clean, and just being like, hey guys, now everything's okay. Like we're just gonna be cool.
Now, I will say you are having a doctor slice open your arm and inject it in.
Yeah, man, we're just gonna be cool. We're just gonna slice your arm open and slide this little boy inside.
Yeah.
There you go.
And like they completely numb up your arm. You can't feel any of it other than like tugging, which is the weirdest part. But when they take it out, it's actually really interesting. Inside of your arm, around the implant, you'll have your flesh cells will actually form a little sac around it, where they have to slice open to get it out. So it's like a little birthing process. Bodies are cool.
Yeah, bodies are so cool.
You're delighted by this, and I'm terrified by it. Just any sort of You say that as though you were awake when it was happening.
I was. Yeah, they don't put you under for this.
What?
They don't put you under for a lot of things that for birth control or contraceptive. Like I was awake for my sterilization, which we'll get to later.
Oh
Whoa.
my.
Yeah.
I would pass out. I would pass out from shock. Like I am so very, very squeamish.
Women are awake when they have their children now.
Yeah, no, I get that one, but there's no part of me that would be like, oh, I want to look at, like, I don't even want to look at my arm when I'm having blood drawn.
No, they numbed me up, and then they just straight up told me, don't, just look over at the other wall, and they kept talking to me.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, this is going to happen. But yeah, I didn't look at it, but they numb you up real well. You can't really feel it. At least I could. I had really good doctors,
I
though.
would hope so.
It's all right, Michael.
Sorry, again, me and Blades.
Yeah, no, it's
not
okay.
a fan.
So Michael would not be getting the implant. We'll learn today.
Like, I don't know, as maybe as based on based simply around, hey, this is what was it, a 3-year that you don't?
Yeah, and like for that reason, like this and all the other long-term birth control methods are my favorite, if only because it really puts a sense of agency for the person who has it.
Yeah, and also based on just the numbers around it, it seems pretty solid across the board.
Oh, for sure.
If it were like, oh, put this in your arm, you're great for 3 years, also 25%. Like, then you'd be like,
no thanks.
No.
Yeah.
So I would say like for it being consistently like powerful and like heroic, perhaps in parts of the country where it's going to be harder to get birth control in the future, I'm giving it a Gryffindor, baby.
All right.
And you get to be a cool robot while you have it in. And
I played with it all the time. It feels literally like somebody put a matchstick underneath your arm. And you can just like wiggle it around a little bit.
I don't
It's
like
so cool.
that. Yeah.
It's so cool to touch.
That's weird to me.
Yeah.
But
Bodies are cool and weird.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So now the IUD, my favorite. Okay. So the IUD is one of the methods that works best at preventing pregnancy. So it's a small T-shaped device that is placed into the uterus by a healthcare provider. So it lasts between 3 to 10 years, depending on whether it's the hormonal or non-hormonal method.
Mhm.
Well, let's start with the hormonal method. So Mirena and Skyla are the two biggies. And so these are the 3 to 5 year or 3 to 7 sometimes range. And they release a small amount of hormones into the body to regulate, and they thin the uterine lining and thicken the cervical cap is what I've heard, and they make it an in-hospital environment for semen to survive. And it's so cool. It's so cool. It's so long-lasting, and a lot of people will experience not having a menstrual period while they're on this method.
Mhm.
So if that's what someone is looking for, then this is the method for them.
So you state 3 to 7 years.
Mhm.
Is there any clear way to gauge what that is, or that's just based on whatever option that somebody chooses? That okay.
Yeah, so
Because that's a pretty large window.
yeah, no. It's specific to the brand type. So
Understood.
Yeah, Skyla, and Skyla is also the smallest of the intrauterine devices,
Mhm.
and so that one I believe is the 3, and Mirena is the 5, and I believe that there is either one that's coming up or some versions of Mirena are 7, but that's a figure that's sticking out to me. But like 5 years is what I believe I was told.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it creates a no man's land for entry or sperm.
Mhm.
And how effective is it, based on, just since we're playing the numbers
yeah.
game a little bit?
So this is also over 99% effective. So again, the Implanon is the more effective than sterilization, but this is also right up there.
Yeah.
And there's no typical use, since it's just hanging out inside the uterus for however long. And once a person no longer wants this method, it is reversible and it can be taken out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, because there's like these two methods and also the non-hormonal version.
Yeah,
Paragard, which is a copper one,
Mhm.
because copper is a natural spermicide. So if you have
Yeah.
that up in you, you don't have to have any of the hormones if hormones aren't necessarily your thing. They are amazing methods, and they have been sort of it's been sort of like a gatekeeping situation historically for people to get this method if they have not had children already in the past. So this is a much more politicized form of birth control too, even though they all are.
Yeah. And so they prevent against implantation. So it works a little bit differently from the other ones, where egg and sperm coming into contact, they can't implant with these methods.
Exactly.
So people might have different values around them.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly enough, this is more like of a trivia thing, not necessarily like you should keep this in mind when you're buying and trying out stuff. The copper IUD, it was discovered in 1975, can also be used as a form of emergency contraceptive, the same as the morning after pill. It's actually the efficacy rate of that is better than the morning after pill. So like if someone was like, oh, I need emergency contraceptive, and theoretically got this device put into them, within the 5-day period, it would like for sure be like, you're not going to get pregnant, honey. Which is like fascinating to me. But like I said, like even 10 years ago, I tried to get one when I was in my early 20s, and I was told no because I hadn't had any children. And that's been the case for a lot of people.
Yeah. I think there's also a medical reason for that.
Oh, no, for sure.
Yeah. For people that haven't given birth to a child, like this, the opening of the cervix is smaller.
It's typically a one-way door, if you know what I'm saying. So going through, because you have to push it through the cervix, which is like a tiny, tiny, tiny hole that only ever expands on its own when you're about to give birth.
Yeah.
Right.
And one of the birth control methods I've had was the copper IUD, and also the copper IUD is the 10-year one. And I had the experience of my healthcare provider didn't warn me that she was going to put it in. She was just like, oh yeah, how's your job at the bike shop? Oh, great. And then just shoom, And I fainted because I'm a fainter and I wasn't given any warning of what was
Also,
going to
no,
happen.
in your defense, this is one of the ones that, like, it's not like they just slap you on the arm and go with a patch, or they give you the birth control method. This is one of the ones that, like, you might not necessarily need to take the day off. Most people can go back to work or whatever they do, but you're going to be hurting at least for the first, like, day or so, because it's painful. And that's if you don't have to get your cervix dilated in order to perform it. Some people have to have the doctor, like, medically dilate their cervix or physically dilate it in order to do the procedure.
Oh, and with the copper IUD specifically, the changes that might occur in someone's body, they still will have a menstrual period. For some people, it might be a bit heavier or last longer. So that's another consideration.
Yeah, you'll be on the crimson tide. So if you're like basically like, I just want to have sex whenever, but you also don't like having period sex, this one might be a little bit of a tougher sale for you.
Oh, the magic of IUDs and their differences.
IUDs, though, are fucking amazing, though, because despite, you know, being a little bit more involved and it would be like the process of getting it, removal is like not difficult at all, and like it doesn't affect you, as far as I can tell, it doesn't affect your fertility at all if you want to go back to having children after that.
Yeah, it's super reversible. And yeah, I had copper IUD removed, and then I had the hormonal IUD Mirena inserted, and I was just like, yeah, I can like go about my day now.
Yeah. And the only other thing to keep in mind is, depending on how long the doctor, there's also a string involved. By the way, like that makes it so that you can make sure it's tracked on in your body and to make sure that it's still there.
Yeah, so a person will check it.
And it softens over time typically, but depending on how long it is, it can be good or bad to have a longer string, because it might poke your partner a little bit as it's still softening up, but and this is like okay, me like not necessarily tinfoil hatting it, but in the future it might be hard for women to be able to go to a doctor to necessarily have it removed by a professional. And so I have heard in some states women are secretly having their doctors keep the strings longer in case they have to remove it later themselves. That's just where we're living, babies. It's wild. And for that, I'm like, hell yeah, IUD. You are like an undercover, like, secret agent right now.
What I will say is, Katie, this hat that you're wearing is magnificent.
But I can't put it in the microwave.
It's super shiny, though.
It's glaring into my eyes and making my eyes water and my mouth hang aghast with fear.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry to scare you. I read about it in like a feminist scene. Because of course I did.
The world that we live in.
Yeah, no, this like was an actual account of a woman whose doctor was like, we're just gonna keep them a little bit longer because we live in such and such state. And I was like, damn.
So where do you feel this is sorted?
What do you think, Arielle?
I think that we need to look at the hormonal and the non-hormonal IUDs separately.
I agree.
Yeah. For me, the non-hormonal IUD Paragard, I think that's Hufflepuff. It's just got your back. And
yeah. And it's even shaped like a little cow's head. It's like T-shaped, so it's got little horns.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
When you were like cow's head, I was thinking very literal.
Oh, no.
I was like, that is an odd...
No.
All right.
The internal, the uterus and ovaries just kind of look like a steer's head anyway.
Yeah.
Like, it's cool.
So a mini steer's head.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
And
Hufflepuff
then,
there.
what about the Paragard? The copper IUD?
So Paragard, yeah, Hufflepuff, and the hormonal Mirena and Skyla. I'm going to say Slytherin because they're doing their job, and it's really ambitious, and like I think that has the cunning of...
Because also it's
Slytherin.
isolated too. It's only affecting like the surrounding areas. So that's why they put it right there, is if you don't want it coursing through all of your veins the way that a birth control pill will. So in that way, it's very exclusive because it's exclusive only to the uterus.
Right. And this minimizes perhaps interacting with other drugs that are like...
Or potentially, yeah, it can just kind of lessen the normal side effects that you would have with like similar like chemically component pills and stuff like that. You're not going to have as like typically can't speak for everybody, but usually they're like, oh yeah, if you want to have like less of those side effects, you can get an IUD and it'll just be located there.
Oh, and this brings up another important topic. If a person is on one of these birth control methods, it's important to tell your doctor that you are on this method when they say, oh, are you on any medications? Because yes, these are medications that a person would be on.
Gotcha.
That may interact with other stuff.
Understood.
Yeah.
All right. What's next?
Sterilization, Katie.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
This is one of the few that men can also take, like men and like assigned male at birth people can take part in.
Yeah. So for people that were assigned male at birth that might have testes and produce sperm, it is most there's the incision or the springs. So it is taking the part that the tube that sperm go through and it's saying, no, y'all can't come out. Y'all can't do this.
It's basically like your sperms are in your balls, right? And they go.
Yes, they are in your balls.
And then like the vas deferens is like the freeway you take to get to.
That is correct.
To when you ejaculate, because it'll pass through the vas deferens through the. Does it go through the prostate, or is the prostate just part of ejaculation? I can't remember.
It is a fluid that contributes to it, so it goes around.
Yeah.
And like splink.
So usually when they want to, if you want to get like a vasectomy, that's where the vas comes from. You are cutting the vas deferens.
And it's a very effective method. Some people, I've heard cases of people getting this and still contributing to a pregnancy, but and sterilization is not a method I'm super familiar with, just because it's doctors are not always willing to give it to people that haven't had children or are younger.
Now, I will say, though, at least anecdotally, with like the reading that I've done, because I did a lot of it, because I did research for over 2 years before I actually had mine, it's a lot easier for people who are assigned male at birth. Getting a vasectomy is a piece of cake compared to getting female sterilization forms.
And vasectomies are reversible also, I believe.
A lot more so. Yeah, a lot
Candy.
more so. Like, it's still a risk that, like, if you're doing it, because usually when you're doing it, you're like, this is for keepsies. But for people who do end up wanting to produce children, vasectomies can be reversed a lot easier than any of the ones for people assigned female at birth. Are we going to sort like the male and female forms separately or all together? Because there's also like different kinds of the male one even. Isn't there like a gel that they can insert now that's like less permanent?
I think that one is coming up on the market, but I don't believe I at least haven't heard of it being a current option.
Yeah.
And
then for female bodies or women who want to be sterilized
or people with ovaries and death stuff.
If you fall into that category, there is either the surgical kind of like they call it getting your tubes tied. There is hysterectomy, which is usually not provided just for sterilization purposes. Like it's unless you need it for a medical purpose, otherwise you're not usually going to get a hysterectomy. And then
Why is that?
Because it is a major surgery. First of all, because hysterectomy means they're taking out the uterus, right? Is it just the uterus?
There's different types of hysterectomies.
Yeah.
I can't remember the medical names of all of them, but there are some that just remove the ovaries, some that remove ovaries, uterus, and some that even might remove the cervix as well as parts of the vaginal canal.
So a hysterectomy is probably going to be a last-ditch effort in the case of like cervical cancer.
It depends. Yeah, it really depends. But yeah, it's usually a procedure that's being done for other purposes, but it will have the side effect of you not being able to carry a child.
And like then also like the hormone production is also going to be very different.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And then the third option that I did is called Escher method, and that's where coils or springs are placed inside of the fallopian tubes. So very much like a vasectomy, it's blocking off the passageway that the cells, the reproductive cells, would travel when you are ovulating.
It's called Esure.
It's spelled ESSURE. My particular one that I got. I don't know if there's other varieties. Of
I
the same.
really want the E to be standing for electronic.
Yeah, no,
with a
it's definitely
dash.
like, it's just like esure.com.
Right.
It's the name of my procedure.
Yeah, it's the future procedure.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's insurance also. Protect your car. And fun facts about the fallopian tubes.
Yeah.
So the fallopian tubes are like the size of a human hair. Like, how incredibly small is that? And right now I'm holding up a poster.
She brought visual aids
for this podcast. And yeah, they're so small. And ovaries are about the size of the thumb, or like half a thumb. So it's just like so small.
And when people who are assigned female at birth are born, did you know, Michael, you're born with all of the eggs you're ever going to produce? Whereas, like,
I had heard that.
Yeah,
yes.
whereas people who are assigned male at birth, like, they actively produce the sperm. It's wild that we all start out, like, you know, as zygotes, like, essentially the same thing, and then it just splits off, and that's when things get wild.
Yeah. You go in double X, you go in XY, because the way that it's gonna be different.
Yeah.
Or like gender mosaic, like XXY, or like, so many cool genetic disorders. Love it.
They're cool.
They're
Ariel,
so
it's such a weird way to put.
cool.
I don't know if cool would be fascinating. Intriguing. But cool, depending on people's opinions on how it might be affecting their life.
Yeah.
Right.
This procedure, I'll let you know, I also was not put to sleep. For a procedure like this, or a vasectomy, if you're in the market for that, you will be awake for that.
I just think you're like, nah, man. Like, you were given the option, but every time you're like, nah, man, I'm
You think
hardcore.
I just opted out because I wanted to be like manly about it?
Katie, if there's one thing I know about you, it's that you're the toughest dude around who always is looking to get into bar brawls and jumping off cliffs and
burst
fighting
into
bison.
tears yesterday because a fat baby smiled at me. So, now you reminding people that fallopian tubes are like the size of a hair. Yeah. It's very difficult to stuff shit into it. So I'll tell you a little bit about what my process was like, because I know not many women. It's mostly women who have it. I'm sure there are trans people, but trans people aren't able to talk about anything. So I will talk about both my procedure, both as someone who is trans and someone who is assigned female at birth. I was in the closet when I got it, which probably helped a lot. I'm sure I would have met more roadblocks if I hadn't. It helped that I assured them I was in a monogamous relationship at the time, even at the Planned Parenthood. It's very much a thing that a lot of people can't wrap around their heads, that not everybody wants to actually give birth to their own genetic children and like carry on that progeny sort of process. But Planned Parenthood never told me no, or like, we don't think you're a good fit. They just were very much like, are you sure? So when you are looking into doing this, here's what you need to know is it's not going to be like you go and tell the doctor you want this, and then the next time you see them, you're having the procedure. I told my doctor that I wanted it at my checkup, and then I had to go in for a consultation, which makes sense. But then they make you do a waiting period so you can make sure that you are prepared. And that's usually like a few months. And then I had a second consultation, and then they set a procedure date for me, which was coincidentally a few months ahead. It might have just timed out like that because Planned Parenthood helps a lot of people. Mm-hmm. So they only have so many doctors in a day, so many procedures in a day they can do.
And maybe also aligning it with your like what was going on with your body.
Absolutely. So it took about 6 months from the time that I told my doctor that I wanted it to the time that I actually had the procedure.
This seems almost on the level of when someone decides that they want to convert to Judaism. How they
for
need
sure.
to talk to the rabbi multiple times.
They told us no. they told me no 3 times.
Yeah. Apparently, rabbis are instructed to tell a person no 3 times, but to like ensure that they're serious about it.
But like full on rejection.
Yeah, and like not be like, you don't want this. You don't want this. We're the chosen people, but like no.
And I love that. Like, if I'm Jewish, also, if someone's already Jewish, like it's like be more Jewish. Like come closer into the family.
But I don't blame them for the same reason I don't necessarily blame the doctors, although it did get a little bit ridiculous. So I'll explain that what happened afterwards. So then you go and do the procedure. Basically, what they're gonna do is they have to do a procedure even before that, where they just go and check to make sure your plumbing's in good shape, because they have to make sure that they don't have to they have to put a camera up into your fallopian tubes and check everything out.
Whoa.
So I had my fallopian tubes inflated with water so that they can do that. It is one of the most uncomfortable things that I've ever experienced, but it was also fascinating.
Yeah.
And then the next time I did it, they had to do the same thing, and then the actual insertion. And it is the most pain I've ever been in my life. They couldn't give me like any sort of serious sedative. But they gave me like a local anesthetic. I blacked out at one point. I did black out, but it wasn't from any like incision or thing. It wasn't psychologically. It was just my body couldn't handle it. So it is very painful. I will I'm saying, I'm not to deter anybody, but just to let you know realistically, I couldn't walk very well for a couple of hours afterwards. And I actually had to just go home and like sleep in bed for the rest of the day. And yeah, what basically they're doing is they're putting 2 little coils right up into your fallopian tubes, and then scar tissue over 3 months will form around the coils and kind of just like build a wall.
And say no.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then when you that's when I was put on the depot shot again for 2 rounds, because they want to make sure like over like the 3 months. And it just happened like it was a weird lapse period. They were like, we need you to do 2 because we can't get you in to see the specialist for like this time period. So I had to do 2 rounds of it. And then after that, I was like, I'm not doing any more of that, by the way. So yeah, after it was like 3.5 months after I had them put in, I had to go and have my my stuff x-rayed. And that was the funniest part, was when I was on the table getting x-rayed, the doctor said, "Are you sure you don't want children?" At which at that point I'm like, that's rude, because that's like what if I changed my mind? I was like, oh, no, you're right. Get these out of me. Well, what am I supposed to answer? So it can be a little bit judgy. You're going to be facing a lot more judgment when you go for sterilization route, because people do not get it.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a long spiel, but
thank you so much for sharing your story.
No, I think it's important. I got sterilized because carrying children was a major part of my dysphoria, my gender dysphoria, and so even though I did it while closeted, it is one of the reasons. If I have children, I basically want to be a father to them, and I want to adopt. Yeah. I know that, but the idea of getting pregnant was causing me so much panic, anxiety, despair. It was making it hard to function, because I was just always worried, like, if I get pregnant, I don't know what I'll do.
Now, to a strange end that I'm asking this question, like this is off topic for sure.
Oh no, you can. Yeah.
Well, not exactly, but so off of the fact that those who have fallopian tubes, ovaries, all that jazz, despite the fact that you have the scarring to prevent eggs from passing through, technically, your eggs are still like they're doing their thing, just like bumping up against the wall, being like, so yo, what up?
Yeah, no, I will ovulate like normal, because it's not going into the actual ovaries themselves.
Right.
So basically the ovaries are firing it off, and then they will go hit the wall, and they'll be reabsorbed into the body. The same way that it would happen if an implantation doesn't happen normally. And then
to my question, sorry to cut you off.
Sure.
I just don't want to lose my question of thought. Then theoretically, if you are wanting to be a father, could your eggs be taken out from you, mixed with your partner, and given to a surrogate, and still technically
I
work?
imagine so. I would have to go and do more research on it because I don't necessarily, it's not necessarily my plan, but it would involve a major surgery because at that point they'd have to open me up and harvest the eggs. And I'd probably have to go on some sort of, they'd probably have to put me on all of the hormones they give you when people are seeking fertility treatment.
Right.
And it would probably still be I feel like it'd be lower just off my gut, a lower chance than like a normal person who just has fertility problems for whatever reason.
Right. I was merely asking in like is that possible? Like
I would say, yeah, but like,
and I'm thinking about like the collection method too, because
it would be very, I don't even know. And that's a thing is like there are so few women and people who are born with these organs getting this procedure that like they've only done, to my knowledge, one successful reversal, by the way. And I will say, full disclosure, I have not experienced any problems with it, but, and so I say, do your reading. I mean, don't scare yourself because people are only going to tell you their story of what happened to them with a medical device, usually if it went badly. Mm-hmm. So I would say, big caveat, but there have been women who've had trouble. I only say women because I don't know any other trans people anecdotally who've had it. The women there's been some women I have talked to and read about online who had implantation problems, and that can be concerning if you. They now claim, I have no idea because they're still trying to do studies about it, saying that they now suffer from like chronic pain from it and stuff like that if it doesn't implant correctly. So I would say make sure that you are going to a doctor who's very, very, very experienced with the procedure, and honestly just make up your own mind about it because they're investigating now. Like, is it the implantation that's is it the procedure itself that's causing these issues? And that's my best guess. Or is there something inherently problematic with this form of birth control itself? I'm not sure. And I don't think even the medical industry knows for sure right now.
Yeah.
Because they don't sterilize a lot of people who are assigned female at birth.
To that end, you were about to say something, Arielle?
Yeah. With all of these methods that we've talked about today and some of the methods that we haven't, like a lot of the barrier methods, it's very important to consider what is right for a person.
Yeah.
So like taking into consideration lifestyle, what freaks them out and what doesn't. So if someone's not interested in needles or not interested in having a small medical procedure, or if someone doesn't want to do something every single day, like it's a very personal choice and there's a lot of options to consider.
Yeah.
And I want to encourage people to talk to trusted adults that they know in their lives and medical professionals and do their research from non-biased, up-to-date, and medically accurate sources.
And like the information changes, it feels like every day now, because it's only in this last century that not only was it something that is becoming depoliticized, but now there's like a reinvigoration of politicizing birth control, which is unfortunate to me, for me. So for sterilization methods, how would you sort them?
Oh man.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time.
I'm gonna give
the
hysterectomy probably a Ravenclaw because it's usually only done. It's just like incidental that you would use it. There's not, as far as I can tell, not too many people who've had it done just for the purpose of sterilization.
Yeah. Because I'm thinking like, what is it not? And the other houses. And it is like something that would take a lot of bravery because there is so much self-advocating that needs to be done to maybe make it a Gryffindor. But yeah, I couldn't imagine it being a Hufflepuff, even though like
it's one of the few that you will be like put under because you're going. It's one of the major surgeries.
You're
it's
talking
like
a hysterectomy.
Yeah, hysterectomy or even like getting your tubes tied, which is a different sort of thing.
I agree with what you're saying, Arielle, on a hysterectomy. Sort of, it's a big move.
Mm-hmm.
And for that reason, I think it's a Gryffindor. I think in the case of Katie, I forget the method.
Esure.
Esure. I think Esure might actually be a Slytherin.
Oh, why do you think that?
I think it's being very clever with the way that the body's going to work. Like, like the fact that it's like, we're going to set up these springs, they're going to form a wall, and the body will just like continue to do its thing.
Yeah.
But we've figured out a way that is like outside of the initial disruption, not going to mess you up too badly based on what you've said outside of these.
Yeah.
What seem to be more extreme outliers where the recipients are still in pain.
To that end, I would go back to Katie's Ravenclaw then and thinking more about like the research that is needed to be done and like using the body in intelligent, clever ways rather than cunning.
Yeah, no, I'm torn even myself because I would maybe I'm trying to figure out if my bias, my own perspective is making me say Slytherin because for my own use, it was very self-serving. I was like, I know how I want to plan my family, and this is definitely like the no going back method of birth control in ways that other ones are. So you, like with other forms, there's the passive sort of like idea of like if my partner wants
this
one in the future that I haven't even met.
This is very much you've drawn a line in the sand.
Yeah, but for my case, I have to have this conversation anytime I get into a monogamous relationship. And it's awkward to know exactly when to have that conversation of like, by the way, if you're trying to get me pregnant, it's not going to happen. like, is that a second date conversation? Because like, especially here in Los Angeles, most people aren't trying to necessarily get into like serious long-term relationships. But
the amount of people on Tinder who are like not looking for a hookup, looking for the real thing, and
that's bullshit.
What's
that's always
Tinder
bullshit.
For?
I don't know, and yet I am still on it.
It's a flame. It's because people are horny and hot for each other. That's what Tinder's for. That's just what it's for. And when people are like not looking for a hookup, I don't buy it, sister. Sorry.
Well, let's work towards all normalizing these conversations, and like so it doesn't have to be like, when do I bring this up? Like, let me tell you about my reproductive history, and let's also talk about getting tested. That's a sexy thing.
No, that's the getting tested part. FYI, I do it on the first time. Like, I ask before we're gonna have sex. I'm like, when was the last time you had a checkup?
That isn't your first date activity. You're like,
we
hey,
go to the clinic together.
We're going bowling, and then we're going to the clinic.
I will say,
romantic.
if you want to get an AIDS test and you live in the Los Angeles area, you can do it out of the closet. They'll help you do it for little to no cost, as far as I
There's
hear.
straight up those like vans that are just like hanging around in WeHo that are like, you want to get tested? Get tested.
If you live in this area, if you're local to the pod of Los Angeles, you don't have a good excuse to not know your status.
Yeah.
Not to know if like if you're neg, at least for HIV. It's people want you to get tested, and you should.
If a person is positive, like there's a lot of great medications that people can be on and still lead like wonderful lives.
Oh no, for sure. There should be zero stigma against people who are positive, but it's good to know.
Definitely.
It's good to know and have the peace of mind, and also just like a clear plan of how you should be going forward in your medical.
Because knowledge is power.
Yay!
So, have we sorted these things?
I would probably put Eshore, because right now we still don't know if it's good or bad for you long term for people who are signing female at birth. I'm giving it Slytherin because it's worked really well for me. I don't know if it'll work well for other people.
Sure. What about male?
The vasectomy?
Yes.
I would probably put that. Let's see.
Hufflepuff.
Probably
can't be done. It's chill.
And also because it's really like there's no way to not be dorky about it, because you basically like men and like people sign male at birth who've had it. I've heard like you're out of commission pretty much, at least for a day or so, and like you'll just be like at home sitting on a chair. It's because I hear it's even hard to lay down, like with a frozen bag of peas under your junk.
You're icing yourself for sure.
And that's funny to me.
So you're basing it off of just the aftermath image is like, oh man, what a dork.
But like No, but like in terms of it just being like very easy to do, it's like it's super simple and it's like more commonly available to
Right.
people of certain ages
Mm-hmm.
than female versions are. I would probably give it a Hufflepuff. It's just like it's so easy.
All right.
It's so easy.
Now, are there other forms of male birth control that we should be tackling?
Besides like male condoms and vasectomies, there's not too many. Y'all
There's,
like
on the market, like, yeah, there's not really much.
There's
But
that one shot that presumably is a thing.
I don't think that's widely available.
Oh.
Or
yeah.
there's
And, like,
studies for sure, but
They say that it's because it's more complicated, but I also say that there's still like a burden put on the female population to control this than the male bodies.
It's very interesting, though, that so much of, well, going off of a conversation that we had with NASA of like, you've got all these fields of research that are predominantly led by men that are then making calls about the female or those like that side of reproductive and preventative measures. But then at the same time, you have the opposite side of that spectrum on the political spectrum, railing against it.
No, men are basically in charge of everything involved in birth control right now in terms of actual power. It's men. It's like males, like because the STEM field is the medical science field is still male dominated. So it's men helping to develop these, and like there are a bunch of badass women who have like pioneered at every step of the way and pushed them in the right direction. But like testing in medical stuff is still done primarily in male bodies. They're really not great at it when it comes to birth control.
But like they're developing birth control for women.
And then male legislators are the ones controlling it and denying it to women's bodies. So it's just like men have their gross hands all over birth control, and I hate it.
To think about like the origins of the pill, which it was in the 1960s when it was able to be prescribed as a birth control method and not like for serious medical concerns and regulation, that like it was pushed out there and that the like regulation was at such a lower standard than it is today. So like the side effects for the male birth controls are similar to what they were back when the pill was being first tested, but now like, no, we can't do that. So it's just interesting how like the scientific field has changed.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, are there any other forms that you can think of, or do you think we've like pretty much sorted all the major players?
Yeah, sorted all the major players. There's
should we sort condoms?
We can sort condoms. So the often called the male condom or the external condom, which
because not many people use female condoms.
They're a little bit more expensive and
female condoms Hufflepuffs.
They are in terms of like nobody likes them. Nobody even lesbians don't like dental dams and female condoms are like dangerously underused in lesbian communities.
Female condoms or the internal condom can be like so much easier to be placed on top of a sex toy. So if someone's got like a big Hitachi, like it's so much easier to place that than like a male condom.
Yeah.
But also rubber gloves are an important part for anyone who has hands and fingers and wants to engage in.
Oh no, yeah, no, safe sex in general. Like I'm not like calling out the lesbian community. Overall, people are bad about using condoms and using the right like external contraceptives.
Yeah.
It's real bad.
And like a lot of people might find difficulty in having that conversation because it's like, oh, it might ruin the mood. But there's a way to make like everything sexy, and it just needs to be like a part of that negotiation. And
yeah, man.
Yeah, consent all around.
I'd probably sort external ones into Ravenclaw or Hufflepuff for sure, because they are like, it's definitely like a less passionate part of like a sexual encounter. It's definitely like all right, everybody, let's put on our safety goggles.
Yeah, no, I'd agree.
And for that dorkiness, I'm probably gonna hand it to Hufflepuff.
All right.
Yeah. Because like even Ravenclaws, it's definitely like, what's about the data, but like Hufflepuff's like, let's do this safely, y'all.
And like that warm, fuzzy place in your heart. They're like, this is important. I care about you.
Exactly. Yeah. And I care about myself.
Yeah.
It's a collective caring.
So yeah, man, I love talking about sex, and sex positivity is very important to me.
Yeah.
But like, especially the medical side, which goes overlooked so much more. And like, even like the, you know, the industries and the social circles that are sex oriented.
A lot of people might not know what options are available or at what cost. And yeah, there's weird information out there about all things. So just like clearing away the fog of birth control.
But honestly, like, if you're listening to this podcast now, you have access to so much information at your fingertips. The internet is amazing in terms of information. I think it like definitely like has been a big part of whatever wave of feminism we happen to be in right now, in terms of saying like, if you want to be informed, you can get informed. I highly recommend.
There is reading material available to you at every viable turn. So don't be hesitant or feel dumb to ask some questions and start doing some research.
Yeah, don't feel dumb if you're like, I didn't know any of this stuff, because like I said, sex ed usually is terrible in the United States. It's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I asked a handful of fairly moronic questions while having this discussion, but
I'm really proud of you for asking.
But I feel a little bit more knowledgeable, and to that end, that's good. And with that, I'd like to thank Arielle for joining us.
Yeah,
on this
Arielle, if
episode.
they wanted to reach out to you on social media, where would they do that potentially?
You could find me on Twitter at Future Dr. Kiss.
Kiss like the band?
Kiss like almost my last name. It's my last name, Schwitkis. So, but it's spelled Kiss on Twitter.
Gotcha. And if you want to hit up me or Michael Barryte, you should definitely ask Michael Barryte sex questions. Slide into his DMs at Belated Media, or you can ask me at that Katie Reed.
That's right. And we would absolutely love it if you would give us a review on either Google Play or Apple Podcasts. Because reviews are very helpful to bumping us up in the rankings. And you also can write to us at sortinghatpodcast@gmail.com with any of your praise, corrections, or suggestions of topics that we can cover, or people that we can get in touch with to further enlighten us on various topics.
Yeah, let us know what you want us to sort, man. And in the meantime, let's go buy some condoms, guys.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you. Now let's get some magnums.
All right, Michael. Don't flatter yourself.